Hello everyone. Let's start today's on the topic of requirement gathering and analysis, a comprehensive guide. I'll give you detailed description on that topic, the requirement gathering, how to do the requirement gathering and how to do the requirement analysis and what documents we need to prepare. So please stay tuned. I'll explain you entire thing in details. So let's move on the next slide. So, introduction to requirement. So, what is a requirement? What the types of the requirement? So, the requirement is a statement of what a system or product must do, should be done by the system or the product. Okay, how it must perform, how the system will perform from that requirement, and what attribute it must possesses that requirement, what attributes, what are the acceptance criteria, what are the field, each field description that requirement should consist. And there are the four different type of requirements. One is a business requirement, one is a functional requirement, third one is a non-functional requirement, and fifth one is the technical requirement. So that's the requirement is there, and that should be the business require functional requirement we write from the business requirement. So business problems or the business enhancement, we should consider them into the functional thing. Okay, they define the need and expectations of stakeholder who are directly and indirectly involved with the system. So what their need, what their objective to use that system, so that in that requirement contain their need and objective. Okay, the importance. Okay, foundation of any successful project, it's absolutely correct. The requirement, if you gather the requirement correctly and that contain all the user things why they are come and that, on that system or the platform, so that will be make your project will be successful. Ensure the final product meets user need and objectives. Correct. What are the user objective, what are the user goal to use your system, so that should be fulfilled by your requirement. User should be satisfied from your requirement. Okay, that should be there. Minimize rework, budget overrun, and schedule delay. Yes, correct. If you are collecting the requirement at high accuracy, and it should be contain, correct acceptance criteria. It should contain the actual test cases with the all the scenarios, like positive scenario, negative scenario, exceptional scenario, alternative scenario, cover in detail what happened, why that happened, and what are the remedies for that situation. So that will be reduce the budget time, and the development will do on one point of contact. So that is there. Two key phases for the requirements gathering or requirement analysis are the key two phases for the requirements. And I'll explain you that both the phases in detail in upcoming slides. Okay, let's move on the next slide. So the requirement gathering, which we call requirement elicitation technique. Okay, the process of collecting information from stakeholder and other resources to understand their need and expectancies for a system or the product. Correct. The requirement gathering or the requirement elicitation is a technique, or it is a process which is used by the business analyst or the development team or any person who are responsible to do the project or the system. So these person to collect the information from the subject matter expert for the business team, for the operation team, for related to that product or that system, how it should work, what are the goal of the end user. So that's the process we call as a requirement gathering. Then the goal of requirement gathering to identify and document all the relevant and requirement and the comprehensively we should document that thing, like the we prepare the FSD, BRD, the change request document, we prepare the wireframes, prototypes for that requirement. So that's the goal, to document all the requirements so we are on same page. Okay, then key principles, it involve all the relevant stakeholder. Correct, it should be requirement gathering, we need to involve all the stakeholder whichever is important for that success of that project. or that system. So we need to involve that all the project, and we need to use the RACI matrix. We stand for the responsible, accountable, consult, and inform. What are the stakeholder who are the responsible? What are the stakeholder who are the consultant? What are the stakeholder we need to inform? And what are the stakeholder we need to count? So that should be there in stage in the requirement gathering. Then use a multiple technique to get the complete picture. So to interact with the multiple stakeholder, to understand that requirement with different kinds of requirement gathering techniques. And it focus on requirement gathering, it focus on what is needed and how it will be implemented. That's correct. In the business requirement, we write what needed, what is needed. And in a functional requirement or the FSD document, we write how it will be implemented in the system and how system will perform after implementing that thing. Let's move on the next slide. So then common requirement gathering techniques. That technique is used by the requirement business analyst to gather the requirement from the client. So first one is the interview, work session, facilitation, survey, questionnaire, document analysis, observation, prototyping, mock-ups, brainstorming session, meetings, team meeting, group discussion, chat session. These are the different kind of techniques that used by the business analyst to gather the requirement from the stakeholder, understand their need, understand the product features or function, prepare the questionnaires initially. So one-on-one discussion with stakeholder to understand their perspectives, needs, and pain points from the systems, and they how they want that system should work, and why their need they will get satisfied after that kind of performance is done by the system. So that's the first technique is interview. Then workshop, facilitated sessions. There is a bringing multiple stakeholders together. Yeah, that's important. There is a multiple stakeholder for collaborative discussion, brainstorming, and concise building. If we do the interviews with individual the stakeholders, they maybe different stakeholder will give us the different opinion, and we don't have the common opinion for all the stakeholder, and we don't have the group communication. So that's why we do the workshop and facilitate the session. So all the stakeholder who are responsible for that product or function, so they have they all are on the same picture, and they don't know how the system should work and how the system should function. So that's the importance of the workshop and the facilitated session. Then survey, questionnaire. We should prepare the questionnaire. We should do the survey with the stakeholder for the useful for collecting information from large number of stakeholders, and especially when geographically the disperse. It's the data is very high, the population is very high, and we take some samples from that population and do the survey and questionnaire from that sample, and to gather the requirement we prepare the questionnaire to gather the requirement. The questionnaire should be look like the yes or no or the multiple choice questions. That should kind of, or the deep discussion about deep description about the topics. So that kind of questionnaire we prepare, and we gather the requirement from the clients. And then the document analysis. So in document analysis we reviewing the existing document, current system manual, business process document, report, user manual, currently available business requirement document, functional requirement document, or the the regulatory documents. We should read all these documents and understand the current operation and identify the requirements in the system, how the regulator want that system should work. So we will do in the document analysis, and it's the important part. So whenever you are going to contact with your stakeholders to gather the requirement, business analyst should do and must do to the document analysis technique. It's an important technique. Then the observation. The observation, there is open observation and close observation. So in open observation we will do discussion with the team, or the learning way observation, actual observation, and it's just the observation. So there are different types of observation. Watching the user performance there in their in a natural environment to identify and understand needs and inefficiencies in the system. So observation is the most usable technique, and it will be most time used by the stakeholders to observe how the system will perform. Then the prototypes and mock-ups, creating early simplified version of system to get feedback and validate the requirement usually. It is better to create the wireframes and prototypes, mock-ups of the system, how it should look like for the end user and what data it should contain. Because the wireframes and prototype is the most appropriate way to demonstrate your software or the system to the business so they can understand what we are going to build. And the brainstorming session, gather the large number of ideas from the group in short period. So there is a different kind of teams who are expert, who are the subject matter expert on that topic, and we will collect them and we will group them, gather the requirement from all of them. So that's, and there is be generating the different kinds of requirements that are the make the project will successful. Let's So requirement analysis. Let's move on the requirement analysis definition. The process of refinement, structuring, organizing, and prioritizing the collected requirements to ensure they are clear, complete, consistent, and feasible. So that's the thing, requirement analysis. Once you are done your requirement gathering, so you should analyze that requirement to prepare the FSD document, to prepare the business requirement document, to prepare the wireframes prototype, to prepare the change request document. So in that case, process, you should do the refinement, structuring, organizing, and prioritize your requirement. You should do the top of the priority of requirement, which are the highest urgency, highest importance, or that should be regulatory requirement that should have the deadline immediately. So that's the requirement we should prioritize, and that should short the requirement. Then should be clear, complete, consistent, developable, testable requirement. There is no open points from that requirement. On that requirement, development will start and complete. There is no any challenges faced by the developers and the testers from that requirement. Then the goal to transfer raw, often ambiguous requirement into well-defined, actionable set of specification. It's a technical feasible. Your requirement should be a technically feasible. Okay, and the key principles of the requirement analysis, it should be clarity, okay, and ambiguity, and the completeness, consistency, feasibility, variability, testable. It should be testable. It should be technical, viable, feasible, and transferability. It should be transferable from the requirement analysis, requirement gathering, requirement analysis, design, development, uh, testing, deployment, and finally any feedbacks from that requirement. That should be there in the requirement. So that's the thing in requirement analysis part. Let's move on the key activities in requirements. That's the most important. So first one is the categorization, prioritization, validation, verification, conflict resolution, modeling, and specification. So let's discuss on the categorization. Group the similar requirement like functional requirement, business requirement, non-functional requirement, user interface requirement. So group such kind of requirement. So that should be easiest to the development team or the whichever person who are reading your document, or the testing team. Then the prioritized requirement, that's the most important thing, ranking the requirement based on a business value, urgency, feasibility, and dependency. We use the different technique like Moscow technique and the must have and should have chart, or we use the highest priority, highest important techniques to prioritize the requirements. So in Moscow stand for the must have, should have, could have, won't have the requirements that should use there. Then we will use the validation, ensure the requirement accurately reflect the stakeholder need and align with the business objective, often involve review and walk through with stakeholder. That the technique validate the requirement, is that feasible, it that's testable, and it the requirement we should able to move in the production into environment. We sort the requirement, we filter the requirements. Okay, then we will do the verification, checking for the completeness, consistency, and correctness within the requirement set. That are the complete, that are the consist, that are the correct within the requirement set. That we should do. Verify the requirement. Okay, then conflict resolution. Identify and resolve the contradictions and ambiguous among the requirements. There is the same requirement contained. There is unnecessary data will contain in that requirement. So we will do that thing, filter the requirement and make it should have the appropriate data, appropriate information in that requirement. Then we will do the modeling, creating the visual representation like use case diagram, activity diagram, data flow diagram, entity relationship diagram to clarify the complex requirement. It should be easily understandable requirement. It should be the understandable requirement. So to do the to do the visual representation of requirement, we use the msvgo .io. Okay, that is there. So then the specification or the documentation which we prepare, so documenting, analyzing the requirement in a formal document like fsd, srs, business requirement document, so that should be there. Let's move on the next slide. So best practices for the requirements that should be used by the business analyst. So first one is start early and continuously collaborate, document clarity, manage changes, traceability, validity, verify, and iterate. So let's discuss each point in detail. Start early and continuously. Requirements are on ongoing activity, not a one-time event. So yes, the stakeholder, business user continuously give us the requirement. They want some changes or enhancement in the system. So that is the requirement. Then collaborate, faster, strong collaboration between the business and the development team. It's the key knowledge area or the key skill of the business analyst. It should be a collaborative person. He know understand the business team and immediately translate their requirement on their prioritization basis to the development team and keep any challenges or any things that faced by the development team, that immediately collaborate with the business team. So there is the clear understanding on the requirement from both the teams. Document clearly, write the requirement in clear, concise, homogeneous manner to avoid the jargons. It should be use a simple word that should understand by the business side and the development side. So that's the document clarity. It should have all the things: wireframes, prototype, understandable charts, understandable documents. So there, any person who are new to the system should understand after reading that business requirement document. Developer, quality analyst team should after reading your document should able to write down the test cases. So manage the change. It implement the formal change control process and requirements. It should contain that thing. Then the traceability links the requirement to design, development, and testing artifact. That's important. So you should have the RTM in a traceability. So in RTM we contain the requirement gathering, requirement analysis, design, development, testing, and the production deployment and the feedback. So you should track is the requirement in traceability metric, so you know what at what stage of each requirement. So that's the important. And then the validate and verify, regularly review and conflict the requirement with the stakeholder, understand that requirement accuracy, explain them, and validate and verify that requirement, and then iterate, refine the requirement iteratively. Okay, and especially in agile environment there is iterative and iterative way to develop the the software. There is the scrum team, they work on the requirement. So that should be a best practice of requirement. Let's move on the next slide. That's the benefit of effective requirement management. If the business analysts are effectively manage their requirement, that requirement should contain all these things. So there are the benefit to reduce the work. There is no need to do again and again work on that requirement. Improve the project success rate. Yeah, definitely that will improve the project success rate. Project are more likely to meet the objective and deliver the value of the project to the business team, and business team will to do their the process enhancement stakeholder satisfy. Obviously if the final product is aligned better with the expectation, then the stakeholder will satisfy and they use your system more and many times to complete their the tasks. The better resource utilization. Yeah, we are able to teamwork to write the things adding avoiding the wasting efforts. There is to on the basis of requirement we will do the priority and the high important high urgency requirement, and to utilize the better way the resource to work on that requirement. Okay, if requirement satisfy the invest or the smart definition. Okay, so that's the important of requirement accurate and estimate. Well defined requirement enable more precise and time to cost and estimation. So that's the accuracy and importance of the requirement. Smoother development and testing. So that's the the development will smooth. There is no open point for the development team. They will develop with to read the use case or the use case or the document to understand the business requirement document, functional requirement document. Okay, and to develop, and then the testing team or the quality team will do the test cases from that requirement and do the testing and do the UAT testing and the production deployment support. So that's are the benefit of complete requirement which contain all the things. So that's from my side. Thank you so much for attending that seminar. And I'll, if we have open points, if we want something feedback from me, so then please connect on my channel, and please do your comment, and I'll be there for support you. Thank you so much for attending that session. Thanks.